Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a really important part of the financial world. What actually happens when someone breaks the stock market laws in India? So let's dive right in.
You've probably thought about this, right? We all see the big headlines about market manipulation or some crazy insider trading scandal. But what happens after that? The whole process can feel like a total black box. Well, in this explainer, we're going to pry that box open and show you exactly how it all works.
And right at the heart of this entire system, you've got one incredibly powerful organization, SEBI. The simplest way to think about them, they're the ultimate referee for the Indian stock market.
Now, SEBI's mission has two sides, and this is so important to understand its role. It's not just about being the police. First and foremost, their job is to protect investors, people like you and me. But at the same time, they're also supposed to help the market grow in a healthy way. So it's kind of like they're both a guardian and a gardener, trying to create a fair and trustworthy environment for everyone.
Okay, so what happens when that trust gets broken? When SEBI gets a whiff that something's not right, a very specific formal process kicks off. Let's look at that very first move. This is where it all starts. A show cause notice is basically SEBI sending a formal letter that says, hey, we think you've broken a rule. You now need to explain yourself. You can think of it like a yellow card in a football match. It's a serious, formal warning that puts the person or the company on official notice.
This slide lays out the game plan perfectly. Once that notice is sent, a formal inquiry gets rolling. A hearing date is set, and both sides get to present their evidence. And then finally, an adjudicating officer, who's basically the judge in these cases, makes a final ruling. It's a very methodical, step-by-step process to make sure things are done by the book.
All right, now we get to the part everyone's curious about. If that adjudicating officer says, yup, they're guilty, what are the consequences? Let's get into the penalty playbook. No, that's not a typo. For really serious stuff, like insider trading or fraud, the penalty can climb all the way up to 25 crore rupees. These are not just slaps on the wrist. These are numbers designed to make anyone think twice. And here's where the law gets really smart. The penalty isn't always just a flat fee. It's 25 crore rupees or 3 times the illegal profit they made, and it's whichever is higher. This is absolutely critical because it guarantees the punishment is always bigger than the reward. The system is built to make sure that crime literally does not pay. This table gives us a fantastic snapshot of how it all works. I mean, just look at the bottom row. Even something that sounds simple, like failing to provide information, can get you a fine up to 1 crore rupees. But then look at the top two, the really serious offenses that can wreck the market, like fraud and insider trading. The minimums are already steep, but the maximums, they're just huge, and they're meant to be a massive deterrent. So how does an adjudicating officer actually decide on a number? It's not random. They have to weigh 3 key things. First, how much did the wrongdoer unfairly gain? Second, how much money did actual investors lose because of their actions? And third, was this a one-time mistake, or is this something they do over and over again? It's all about making sure the punishment fits the crime. But, not every single case goes all the way to a final verdict and a huge penalty. Just like in other legal systems, there are, let's call them off-ramps, other ways to resolve the case. Okay, this slide breaks down the 2 main alternate routes, and the difference between them is super important. On one hand, you have compounding. This is for the more serious stuff that could actually lead to criminal charges, and it's handled by a court. But on the other hand, you have settlement. This is for civil issues, and it's handled directly with SEBI. A lot of companies choose this route to avoid a long, expensive, and very public legal fight. They can often settle by paying a fine without actually admitting they did anything wrong. So, we've walked through all of it, the notices, the inquiries, the massive penalties, the settlements. But let's zoom out for a second. Why does all this complex machinery even exist? What's the big picture here? This quote from a real case says it all, doesn't it? In the eyes of the law, saying, oops, I didn't know that was a rule, is never, ever a valid defense. If you're playing in the stock market, you're expected to know the rules of the game. The main takeaway is that accountability is non-negotiable. And this right here is the ultimate goal. Every single notice, every penalty, every settlement, it's all there to reinforce one core idea, that the market is a fair place to be. This is what builds the confidence that we all need to put our hard-earned money into the system, knowing that there's a powerful guardian watching over things. So we end with this question. We've seen the rulebook, we've seen how big of a stick SEBI can swing.
The framework is definitely powerful. But in a world where financial schemes get more and more creative, is it enough to stay one step ahead of the next big scandal? Well, that's something for all of us in the market to really think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.